Call the Kitty Hawk Town Council to order this Monday, May 4th, 2020 at Kitty Hawk Town Hall. It's now 6 p.m. We are streaming live and we do have telephone call in. So if anyone needs to call us during a public comment, we have it at the beginning of the meeting pretty soon and again at the end of the meeting. So feel free to do so. Would everybody join us for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next I'm going to call for approval of the agenda. I'm going to add item 7B, Bravo. It has to do with a restaurant association request. We're going to do some discussion on some special things they've asked for possible help with relating to going out of this COVID-19 and into summer. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda, Mr. Mayor, with the addition of item 7B, boy.
Do I hear a second? All right, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, next we have a presentation by Town Manager.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council. The presentation I want to do this evening has to do with the Kitty Hawk Park Trail Connector project that we've been planning for several years. There is a grant application that we have filled out in 2018. And let me get this up and running here. Through the North Carolina Recreational Trust Fund, the Recreational Trails Grant, we submitted a grant application in 2018 and we were unsuccessful in obtaining the grant. It's just such a highly competitive grant fund at the time. So what we're looking to do is to reapply for that grant again this year. I was just going to take you through some of the history and allow anybody from the general public or the town council that has any comments on the project. Now's the time to provide any input or support for the project. Just a kind of a history of this. The history of how we got to where we're at today is back in 2018, the Recreation Committee supported this trail connector project that will connect, it's about a 500 linear foot section from Kitty Hawk Park to the Birch Lane Trail. Jeff Pruitt, Mayor, and the Mayor, Perry, have also supported the project and kind of was their initial idea to try to get a connection to a highly underutilized trail that runs through the Woods Preserve. So what we did from that point was we started looking for funding and started doing some planning. Jeff Pruitt spent many hours trying to find the easiest route to get to the Kitty Hawk Park from the Birch Lane Trail, which currently the only way to get to the Birch Lane Trail is to enter it from Kitty Hawk Estates. And it's there's no identified parking, so it's a nice trail that runs about 1.8 miles through the woods. However, it just has very limited access. So in 2018 and 2019, and then tonight, I'm going to ask the mayor to sign a letter of support. The town council has basically issued their support and given letters of support for the project. It was also identified in a coastal reserve access study that was conducted in 2018. We have a committee that gives recommendations for the preserve itself that meets quarterly. That includes Fish and Wildlife, the Coastal Preserve, members of the general public, and an elected official. So we meet, and they also thought that it would be a good idea to connect the Birch Lane Trail to the Kitty Hawk Park. In May of 2018, the Board of County Commissioners issued a letter of support for the project. Of course, as you know, Kitty Hawk Park is a county-maintained facility, so they were on board with putting a connector trail at the Kitty Hawk Park location. In 2018, the NC Coastal Management also issued a letter of support for the project. We had the town engineer draft some preliminary engineering plans, kind of like a general location of exactly where we're going to look to put this boardwalk. It's a mixture of a boardwalk to get over some marsh, and it's also about 100 feet of just dry path to get to the end of that trail there at Birch Lane. So we drafted some plans, we submitted the application. We also, at the same time, we also received a grant in the amount of $47,000 from the Dare County Tourism Board. Last year we extended that, we have until the end of this year, to the end of November of 2020, to let them know what we would like to do as far as moving forward with the project. So we've extended the grant out as long as we have at this point, so we're going to give it one more shot, and we're resubmitting an application to the North Carolina Division of Parks and Recreation, to the Recreational Trails Program. So in 2020, as I just mentioned, we're planning on resubmitting this grant. I'll kind of give everybody an overhead for those who aren't familiar with the project. I'd like to try to get some better maps for you in the near future. But as you can see here, this is the Dare County Park, which is located off West Kitty Hawk Road. It's right before you get to the Woods Road. It's got the skate park, it's got parking, it's got restroom facilities, it's got the amenities that are already there in place. And that was one of the idea, and the reason why this makes so much sense was to provide a connection to this trail at this location is because of all the resources that are already in place and existing. The Coastal Reserve, when they did their access study, one of the big things that was identified was parking. So it just made good sense to try to connect this into the Dare County Park somehow, provide a more visible access to the Birch Lane Trail, and I think the trail will get utilized a lot more than what it currently does. I think a lot of people don't even realize that that trail is a nice, beautiful walking trail through cypress and all kinds of nature, and it's a 1.3 mile trail that's, like I said, highly underutilized. So for the general location, it's Dare County Park. It's the location of actually going across the little wetland area, as you see there, is why we would need to build an elevated boardwalk about 6 feet wide, similar to what you see around Sandy Run Park. Not as extravagant, but just a way to get over to the Birch Lane Trail. So here's sort of some of the construction plans that I mentioned earlier that we had designed. You see this map here, it might be hard to see, but there was also talks at one time of trying to connect it to the Sandy Run Park facility there as well. Maybe we'll do that sometime in the future, but the easiest route right now to get access to that trail will be through Kitty Hawk Park, so we're just seeking grant funding for that little section at this time. I'll stand for any comments or questions, and part of the grant application was to get public input, so we have a lot of support for this project. I've heard a lot of residents and users of the trail system support the project, so I just wanted to bring it before the public this evening and see if there was any comments or any questions that you have about this project.
Any of you have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Great idea. Great job.
It's really needed. It's the right thing to do. The reason we can't come off of North Midget is because that's private property between those 2 points. So we have to go that direction. And this is an underutilized thing that would be a real attribute to to the whole of the county, all our tourists. We get a lot of tourists that use these places, but they need to park, and that's the central issue here. So going forward, and I guess if anybody's the one that wants to speak, Andy, you're going to have to deal with that on the telephone.
Does everybody here like to speak about the Kitty Hawk Trail Connection project?
Nobody? All right. Well, for anybody listening, those that are watching, if you do have comments, we always take your emails, written correspondence. You can telephone Sandy Hawley. Would be more than happy to take whatever information you've got, and we'll use that to try to beef up the application.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Andy. All right. That does lead us into public comment. Is there any public comment? Anybody on the phone that wants to comment here? Not about anything? No? All right, Andy, we do have some to read into the record. Would you do that, please?
Yes, sir. I have an email from Daniel Lewis, dated May 3rd, 2020. It says, first, I would like to thank you all for your efforts on the control board in seeing our community through this current crisis. I'm sure it has been difficult balancing a variety of concerns and not being able to please everyone with these tough decisions. I am reaching out to all of you as head of the Outer Banks Restaurant Association, a member of the NC Restaurant and Lodging Association, Government Affairs Committee, and a member of the recently formed NCRLA COVID-19 Recovery Task Force. NCRLA has been in daily contact with Governor Cooper's office since the crisis began and is now working with them on a reopening timeline and procedures, including the NC Restaurant Promise and COVID-19 training programs for restaurant personnel in conjunction with DHHS and NCSU Extension. Based on the task force recent recommendation to the governor's office, we are expecting NC Phase 2 to occur in late May and will include, among other things, restaurants opening at 50% capacity seating, inside and on patios, and/or maintaining separation of tables and chairs to comply with social distancing expectations. This would be expected to last at least 4 to 6 weeks in a best-case scenario. Regardless of the timeline, our industry expects that our outdoor dining, takeout, and curbside delivery options will continue to play a much larger role in our business model for a much longer time. And the fact of the matter is, without other support or stimulus options, many restaurants here and across the country will not make it through this crisis. With that said, I ask that all our municipalities take a look at 2 areas in their zoning that may work against efforts to service our guests and options other than inside dining. First is the mobile vending ordinance that prohibit the use of carts, kiosks, and food trucks in most towns. I fully understand and agree with the intent of these ordinances to not allow just anyone to set up shop anywhere. But especially now, with the tremendous need to serve guests for takeout, I would ask that all towns create an exception for restaurants to be able to use their own carts, kiosk trucks on their own operational premises. The second area of concern is the outdoor dining ordinances, many of which set a limited amount of square footage based on things such as lot coverage, parking, etc., but don't necessarily take into account the number of people. In our new era, I would ask that all towns consider modifications to those limits in order to allow restaurants to space their tables in compliance with social distancing standards while still maintaining a viable number of seats with those spacing expectations. I understand that most of these asks require either a text amendment, a zoning variance, and/or a conditional use application, along with a fee and a timeline that may take 2 to 3 months for any movement. But during these extremely trying times, I would ask if there is any way to expedite the process and the possibility of waiving any fees that might be incurred. I would also be happy to have an OBRA member point person for each town work with all of you individually on these matters. As many are having upcoming town council meetings shortly, I ask that above be read in the public comments or added to the agenda, with the exception of the town of Duck, as I have my own specific business interests there and will draft a separate version for their meeting on May 6th. Thank you again for your service to our community and your consideration, Dan Lewis, owner/chef of Coastal Provisions Restaurant. The second email is dated May 4th, and it is from Chris Vlahos, and he is representing Barefoot Bernie's Tropical Grill and Bar here in the town of Kitty Hawk. Dear Kitty Hawk Town Council, with the hopes of reopening our restaurants on the horizon, we hope that the town of Kitty Hawk will take into consideration the restrictions that are currently in place for outdoor dining. With the capacity of our indoor dining being limited, we will be looking to other areas to help offset the lost revenue. By relaxing the restriction on outdoor dining, we may have the ability to survive through this crisis. I also ask that you consider basing any restrictions on indoor dining, not solely to the occupancy numbers of the building, but the ability for establishments to offer proper table spacing and social distancing, but at the same time maximizing occupancy based on those requirements. Thank you for your time and consideration. Chris Vlahos, Barefoot Bernie's Tropical Grill and Bar.
All right, thank you. One more time, is anybody on the phone for comment?
Anyone on the phone for public comments?
All right, let the record show no one else came forward. All right, next we have,
Wait 1 second there.
I'm sorry.
Did I hear somebody?
Yes, my name is Morris Ranch, and I'm a property owner here in Yale. And I do have a comment. I had a comment last meeting, but it wasn't read into the record, so I was wondering why that occurred, and because since I could not get down here, was not allowed down here, I sent it in my comment to be read into the records, and I think the mayor had indicated that because of either Cancel's decision or Cancel's recommendation, he would not do that. And I was just wondering what that was and whether that's been relooked at.
What, was this the one that the letter was written to the county and not to us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. Casey, would you answer that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Mr. Branch. And I believe, I thought I addressed this privately with you through letter. Did you receive that letter? I'm just asking.
No, I did not receive any letters.
Okay. Well, I sent an email, I copied in an email, we had your email address, and I also mailed you a letter explaining, because again, you had come forward after last meeting and asked the same question essentially that you're asking now. So for the record, I would have no issue putting out why we decided not to read that so into the record. The decisions that are being made, that your letter addressed those decisions so far as the safety measures that are taken in regards to COVID-19, bridge closure being one of those measures. And that decision, however, was not made by the collective board of the town of Kitty Hawk. That was probably the most major issue. I did not feel that it was in the best interest of the client, being the town, to have something read into the record that perhaps gives some form of insinuation to the fact that the town made that decision. I wanted everything to be directed through the proper channels. Your letter was addressed to the county, and as such, my simple request was to have anything that was addressed to the county, read by the county, and addressed by the county. So those are the reasons.
Any further comment from?
I do understand that.
All right. Anything else you'd like to say, sir?
I'm not at this point.
All right. Well, we appreciate you calling in.
All right, anyone else?
Anybody else for public comment?
All right, we'll assume no one else is on the line. All right, next we need to approve the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion for that?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, with that, we go on to we didn't remove anything from the consent agenda, so we go to this item 7B, and it discusses, the two letters basically are essentially asking for some help in areas that we would not normally tread. It involves some zoning issues, some regular issues on parking, number of parking, a whole bunch of issues that the new normal that seems to be coming is if we don't find some way to help them, they're going to need some relief in some way. So that's what I'm asking council to do tonight is you've been given those mails, you understand the problem, and we can't make a decision tonight because we don't have particulars. The governor hasn't lifted his restrictions, and until that happens, nothing else really does happen. But they're working towards something that we can look in our rules and get with our legal attorney and see if there's ways that we can help them in the short term. Make sure we have sunset provisions onto it so that it doesn't become the norm, that we're not, waiving things that would require normal text and that sort of thing. And Casey, would you tell us, kind of for the record, if we can do something like this by continuing the declaration of emergency, or do we have to do something else? Please give us something on that, please.
Yes, Mayor. So I spent a portion of today researching this because I knew it was
you had forwarded me the emails as well that were read into the record tonight. And fortunately, I do believe that we can help these people if the town so chooses. What's occurred essentially is the North Carolina Emergency Management Act, which is at the state level, being the act that was adopted that provides for our state's response, across the board, our state's response to emergency scenarios. Naturally, this applies here. So what it says essentially is that, of course, the governor, as the mayor said, his order stands. So until something occurs, some form of relief occurs in regards to essential versus non-essential businesses, the non-essentials must stay closed. But once they are allowed to reopen via state order, the question is, what can we do? The statute, the Emergency Management Act, essentially delegates power to counties and municipalities within, of course, their corporate limits and the general measure to what I call a declaration, but waivers. There's a lot of different terms you can put on what you're declaring, if you will. And since we have a state of emergency already declared, yes, essentially, Mayor, what you guys would need to do and consider, and actually our town code, the state law says that the towns may adopt and need to adopt an ordinance that actually allows for these forms of emergency measures. We have done that. I checked in our code today. And what the state statutes also say is that we can appoint, the town can choose to appoint the mayor as the acting, not just the acting official that enters the declarations, but he actually can act in his capacity alone and have it be binding on the town. I think that was the intent there, was probably in the event that you can't haul everybody together, then the mayor has the ability to act as soon as needed. You guys, of course, have the ability to communicate. But what the town code and the state statutes allow are measures that essentially, and to quote precisely from the statute, measures that ultimately will provide for the ongoing, sorry, give me 1 second, I have this.
Basically, safety and welfare.
Yeah, safety and welfare, but also public order
Right.
and services. That was actually, it's kind of this conglomerate, if you will, which the way I read it, essentially, let's act as normal as possible under this new normal. And that's, again, what the statutes allow. In particular, the town code states that you guys can issue essentially a declaration that prohibits and/or restricts operations of offices, business establishments, or other places from which people may travel or at which they may congregate. Restaurants, of course, would fit into that business category. So all of the enabling law is in place. And my legal opinion is that yes, if the town so chooses, that there are measures that can be taken that what I'm going to call override, if you will, the perhaps the zoning regulations that are currently in place. Sunsetting, of course, as the mayor said, there can be time limits put on this. Actually, any declaration entered can go no longer by law than the actual emergency itself. So when the declaration expires, of course, any temporary measures would expire along with those, with the order. And I do like the fact that the state statutes give municipalities the flexibility to do what they need to do within their community. And it again would be my position that to prohibit, restrict, those are the words that are used within the statutes. But what we're essentially doing is issuing restrictions on a particular restaurant as to how they must or can operate if they choose to operate. So I don't view that as a bar, just because we're, again, perhaps alleviating or overlooking the current zoning regulations. I think that is well within the statutes.
Okay, and another important point, because I think a lot of people believe that Dare County issues a declaration that usurps us. That is not true.
No, not on this particular issue. That's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. It's kind of, I look at it like this, it's kind of compare the state model to the county municipality model. The state can come out and they can issue this stay at home until May 8th. We can't say May 5th, for example, but we can say May 22nd, and that's what the county has done. They've actually, you can become more restrictive than the state, but you can't loosen the regulations that the states put forward. Same deal here with the counties. How we choose to operate within our corporate limits is essentially our choice.
Right. And most of the time, we mirror the county simply because it's a catastrophe where we might need FEMA money, those sort of things. This might be a little different and would be different in the sense that we would let restaurants within our municipality do what we think is right regardless. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, that would be correct.
Okay. All right. So before I suggest anything, does any of you have any input? Let's start over here.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think we need to get these people back up and working any way we can. I mean, we got plenty of empty parking places and everything else. I want to see the people back, and I want to see them back to work.
I agree. Anything we can do to help, I agree.
Ben?
I think we can come up with a way to make it workable and safe, and everybody will be, if not happy, everybody will be content.
At least survive.
I mean, I completely agree. I mean, we need to do something for them.
Okay.
And, you know, that, well, just, they need to get back open.
Okay. Then I'm going to make a motion tonight that what we're doing is giving direction to the planner and to our attorney to work with these people to find out what they need, find out how it works within the scope of what we can do legally, bring that back to us, and then we'll make a determination, plus the legal rewording of any declaration, so that we can do it. And if, right now, we don't have specifics on the governor, so we can't put a time limit on it, but if we need to do something before our next meeting, then I want to know that so that I can call a special meeting. Now, like the man said, you know, the mayor has enormous power under a declaration, and it's not power that I would ever use wrong. So in a case like this, it's not something that's immediate. It just needs to be attended to in a timely fashion. A special meeting would do that, and you people would be involved, not just me making this decision. So that would be the plan. That's the motion. And you can shorten that, Lynn, to make it work. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I'll second the shorter motion.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? There are none. All right. You got your orders.
Thank you,
All right.
Casey.
Town manager, do you have anything for us?
Just several comments. The shipping service and the large item pickup has begun. We've gotten some calls from the non-resident property owners. I'm informing anybody that called as they get back in town. Now that we have our grapple truck that we purchased several years ago, it's not going to be an issue to help the non-resident property owners that were unable to be here because of the bridge closure. So if there's, we'd like to just do it by call-in, or if somebody happens to set something out by the road, we'll go by and pick that up for a period of time. So just for everybody watching this from out of town, don't worry, give us a call. We'll take care of you when it comes to any large item pickup items or chipping debris, brush, things of that nature. Also, in the midst of the crisis, the town is continuing to move forward. This week alone, I think we've submitted 3 grant applications. One was for the Hurricane Florence Storm Damage Mitigation Fund that the state legislature approved, I think, about a $12.5 million grant fund for shoreline protection, beach nourishment projects. So we put a grant in for that, quite a lengthy grant. This week we submitted for it. It's up to $2.5 million, and it's based off of scoring. We don't quite know. It's a newer fund, and they just funded it, so we're not sure how all the scoring is going to take place or who does that scoring. But we're in the mix for that for our next renourishment project, which would be nice if we did receive some funds. to offset the cost of the renourishment. We've also received a $90,000 grant that we're going to do in the fall of this year for more ditch cleaning as a result of some funds were available from Hurricane Matthew. And then, of course, you just heard the presentation that was submitted for the grant funding for the recreational trails program. So hopefully we'll get lucky with that one. That is a highly competitive grant, but we're doing our best to move the town forward and continue to operate in the midst of uncertainty, I guess. And the town continues to provide excellent service, and I'm proud of the job that our employees are doing for our residents and our non-resident property owners. With that being said, I'll just give everybody an update on the bathhouse. This may lead into the mayor's next discussion, but I'd like to just show everyone the progress that we're coming along with the bathhouse. I know this was a little issue snag that we ran into several months ago with the elevation of the bathhouse, and we had to wait till the new maps were adopted in order to begin construction of the project. I lost my PowerPoint here. Let me pull it up real quick. So what I did is just went out and took some pictures today of the progress of the bathhouse. I just wanted to show you all. It's coming along really nicely. There's going to be some great upgrades, I think, that are going to take place. We're going to put the showers, we're moving those away from the walls so the walls don't rot out, the public showers that are at our bathhouse facility. Putting in some new type of flooring that will allow us to clean and be more sanitary, especially it's just perfect timing with the COVID virus and people being really wanting to be sanitary. So there's a lot of upgrades that you'll see when it's completed, but this is the outward view of the bathhouse now. You can see that they put a new roof on it, and they put some T111 siding or some nicer siding on the outside, and then also we've got some composite decking that we put in there, which the bathhouse is a place where people come up when they're wet. So we think the upgrades to the bathhouse are going to pay off in the long run, and hopefully will require less maintenance in the future. That was the point. There's sort of the back of it under construction. This is where we're at sort of on the inside. The plumbing's been completed. They're in the process of sort of just finishing the floors, and then they'll install the toilets and sinks, and they'll install an epoxy floor. The picture over here with the purple drywall there, that's a little bit additional space that we constructed for ocean rescue, so they can get out of the weather when it rains. It's a little bit bigger, it'll be a little bit nicer. It's not a huge office or anything, but it'll serve the purpose, and it'll be a lot better for those employees in the summertime. And right now we're on target to open the bathhouse June 8th, possibly sooner, but that's sort of the deadline that the contractor told us that he believed he could get everything completed by. So we're several weeks behind when we usually open, but we are looking to, it could be sooner. So it's coming along good, and we did make some upgrades that I think may have delayed it just a little bit, but I think it's going to pay off in the long run. So that's all I have for my manager comments for this evening. If you have any questions, I'll stand for any questions.
And to back up to the chipping service, do you know how much of the town has been covered?
It's going a little slower than anticipated. I talked to Willie today about it, so I would imagine around 50%.
Okay,
So we just leave it out by the road, and we'll get to it.
Very
I would
good.
imagine in the next couple of weeks, everybody should be
okay.
taken care of.
Very good, very good. Thank you.
Okay. Town attorney.
I can't help myself but to look back through. I found the comment I was looking for in our town code, so just to recite that. So prohibitions and restrictions can be assessed because of an emergency to maintain an acceptable level of public order and services. So again, that along with all of the language regarding vulnerability of the people and property within the community. Again, I'll just reiterate the powers there.
There's no question any of us, all of us, want to help these people. It's important to everybody. So we just need to find a way. And once you give us that, we're going to do it.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Reports from town council. Let's start with you, David.
Just want to get everybody back to the work and see people get here.
Okay,
Enjoy their homes, enjoy the weather.
I agree. Jim?
I want to thank our extraordinary departments and staff and the support we all have for everything that's going on. A lot of people don't understand what it takes to keep a little town going, and we have some extraordinary people on our staff doing some good things for us. And I also want to thank our mayor for all the hours every day he devotes to all the things that are not part of his normal list of things to do. And I don't want his job. But other than that, everybody stay healthy, stay safe, social distance,
Hello,
and
can you hear me?
wear your mask.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Oh, may I ask a question? It sounded like it was wrapping up.
Not quite.
Not quite. If you give, I'll give you your opportunity. Give us 1 second.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Craig?
Yeah, I'd like to read a little something here. First of all, I'd like to thank the Dare County Commissioners and the members that make up the Dare County Control Group for the tough and sometimes unpopular decisions you have made and will continue to make. I know that you have had the best interests of Dare County in mind when you make these decisions. I'd like to thank the staff and departments here in Kitty Hawk, Andy, that very much includes you, sir, for the work you have done during this crisis. You're the best. Once again, my thanks to Mayor Perry for the many hours you have spent dealing with this crisis. The many meetings you have attended either in person or by phone, and the emails you have responded to may go unnoticed by the public, but not by members of this council. Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you.
We have all heard stories of local people not wanting the non-resident property owners or later the visitors to gain access to Dare County. But I'd like to say that everyone is welcome in Kitty Hawk. It upsets me that anyone would feel threatened or feel like they're not welcome in our town. That is not what Kitty Hawk is about. Until this thing is over, I agree that non-resident property owners and later the visitors, when that time comes, need to bring their own supplies. Those of us who live here still have a lot of empty shelves to deal with here in the stores. So if you can bring your own supplies until we recover, that certainly would help. We have all had to make those trips to try and locate toilet paper and paper towels. I did that myself this past Saturday morning, and I got lucky at Food Line. We still have some tough days ahead, and this council has some tough but necessary decisions to make at our upcoming budget workshop next Monday. But we are Kitty Hawk, and we will make it through this. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Yeah?
Well, I'd just like to, everybody's about said what I wanted to say. I want to thank Andy, Casey, and all the employees and staff here. It has been difficult times, especially Gary, Mayor Perry, for all your time that you spend keeping us informed, and I think doing an excellent job for the taxpayers of Kitty Hawk. Just to touch on a little bit what Craig was talking about, the non-resident property owners not feeling welcome and what they've been hearing on social media. I do think it's just a few people, and as Gary has stated in replying to emails, I don't think they're from here. We're known for welcoming people, and we can't wait for everybody to get back. So come on back. That's all I got to say.
Good job. All right, thank you. I have a couple of things. Since the bathhouse has been closed, a lot of the people visiting our beaches have been pushed down to Bird Street, and the porta potties are going to go back. Should be, maybe they're there this week, but might be there now. Andy, I would like for you to look into the possibility of maybe Littling Street could get some kind of help there. We had talked about that one time before, but we were afraid the neighbors might not like it. But look into it, see if there's a way to get some kind of facility there too. There's not much other places that we can put it because of limited space, but those two places fill up pretty good. And we had something like 758 people on the beach yesterday. It was a beautiful day. We have Ocean Rescue, 2 people go out from 10 to 5. They roam the beach. They interact with the people that are out there. It's an educational thing. We need the help of everybody in Kitty Hawk and those that come to either be at their home or in any event. If you're visiting the beach, help us keep the beach open. I need your help to make sure that we don't get any complaints of too many people congregating together, not doing the distancing thing. That's the kind of thing that gets the control group upset. And I'm fighting hard to keep your beach open, but I need your help to do it. That's the bottom line. So mind your manners, and we're trying to do it the right way too. And one last thing here, concerning the demonstration, I know there was a group there this morning when they opened up to NRPOs, and the group was basically the Tourist Bureau. And they had a lot more people come than were supposed to come. The town has an ordinance that says if you're going to have a demonstration, you need a permit. I think that occurred or came about because of some strikes over at Dominion many years ago. But the bottom line here is there was one group out there that was kind of ugly. And they started a lot of the comments. They were threatening to demonstrate, and they were going to demonstrate against anybody coming in and be ugly about it. And then when the group from the Tourist Bureau and others wanted to demonstrate and say, welcome back, we said, in order to be right about this, we need for you to get a permit if you're going to have over 5 people in your demonstration. Well, they didn't get their permit. The other side didn't do the demonstration. But what did happen was a bunch of the people who are interested in getting people back, the rental agencies and those, sent all their employees down there to do this, and the best of intention, but it put us in a bad spot. Because basically we had already told the Tourist Bureau, you need to get a permit so that we're doing this for you and doing it for the other side so that we can have some way of controlling the situation. Only doing that because we didn't want to get out of hand. We didn't want to get ugly. We wanted to have some way to make sure it was done right. So I know the voice, said, well, they were ordered to disperse. Yeah, they kind of were because they didn't get what they needed to do. And they were told to do that. They knew what to do. They thought they were going to be able to go down to OBX Chevrolet and a little group of 5 would do it, but they didn't count on all the other ones that showed up. As soon as the police chief came down, they dispersed, all is well. And I hope the other group don't come because if they don't have a permit, they're going to have a problem and they will be chased off. So with that said, we got porta potties coming. Said I need citizen help with beach remaining open. You now understand what happened up at the demonstration. And it's time for public comment. I think we had one. Andy?
Oh, ma'am, are you still on the phone?
Yeah.
All right, the floor is open for public comment. We're here to listen.
Okay, so I'm a non-resident property owner, and my last name begins with the letter N like Nancy. I understand that tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm allowed to come in beginning at 6 a.m. Number one, is there a deadline during the day that you can no longer gain entry? In other words, we're coming from 4 hours away, do we need to arrive by a certain time?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. There's the Dare County Sheriff's at the bridge 24/7, and will be until
Okay.
this is over.
Okay, all right, and then number two, how did it go today with the reentry, if you don't mind me asking?
I didn't understand the
How
question.
did the reentry go today?
As of this morning, it was slow.
Yeah, I didn't hear of any problems whatsoever.
And I think what's happening, and this is just a guess on our part, but a lot of people work, and I expect it'll pick up come Saturday, which is the normal changeover time for people to come in. So it would make sense that they would just wait and come in Saturday or Sunday to go to their home. So we think that's what's happening, but now I don't know what happened this afternoon, so that could change.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I think that was my question. Thank you so much for offering this to the public. I really appreciate it.
All right?
Man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone
Anyone
else?
else for public comment on the phone?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
My name is Peggy Beltry. I'm part of a large family group that has our family reunion. We are raised every summer, and we have a 60-bedroom house that we're renting. And I wonder if there's anything that we need to be considering as we look forward to our rental that we might not be thinking about, because we all come from other states. I'm in the Chicago area. We have New Yorkers, people from Connecticut, people from Florida, New Jersey. Like, I wonder if there's limitations on sizes for a group of over 30. Does that limit what we would be able to do during our vacation?
I didn't get the question.
Visitors, we
She
don't
has
know.
a family reunion in a 16-bedroom house and approximately 30 people. So is that going to limit her with social distance? I mean, it will all depend on the timing, but is that going to limit her and what she's able to do, being that they have such a large group?
Okay, there are two things there. The first one is the governor, okay? We don't know what he's going to do on the 8th. If he lifts the restrictions, then will Dare County follow with visitation? So you're premature in us being able to answer that question. I don't have an answer for you, I'm sorry. I assume you're renting, and I've had this question, it's been posed 2 or 3 times. The fix the renters are in is that if we remain under a declaration where visitation or renting renters are not allowed in, then you have some recourse to get back your deposit and perhaps any other money. If we are not, if we open up to visitors, then you're still on the hook and you have a right to come to that rental unit. Am I right, Casey?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. So that's the 2 answers I can give you for what you're really asking. And you didn't give us a date or a place, so I can't answer those. And we don't have a date for you, so you're going to have to wait and see what basically the governor does first and the control group does second. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Is there any other public comment?
Yes, this is Morris Range again. I'm a property owner in Kitty Hawk. And I have a question very similar. Does the governor have a restriction currently on people renting houses?
Is there a just for everybody's sake, is there a restriction in place right now under the governor's order that essentially restrict the renting of homes? So from the governor's standpoint, what I would say is you've got the gathering rule, which currently is 10 people or less. So to that extent, it could perhaps, yes, affect the renting of homes, such as the one just described, the 16 persons in one home. That would currently be restricted under the governor's order as well.
Okay, but if that's not the case, if it's less than 10 or whatever it is, does Dare County have a restriction that's going to be more limiting than the governor's restriction as far as allowing people to come in and rent your property?
The restriction would be against visitors to the county, not the renting of the...
So yes, you're talking about one and the same, right? Visitors, renter, who the mayor is talking about are the same that you're talking about. Class of people. I think you can probably continue.
I'm sorry?
I said you could probably continue. I just wanted to make sure y'all were on the same page.
Well, basically, the county is more restrictive in that they close the gate to visitors. So if you're renting a place you're a visitor, as opposed to owning a place, which we've now opened up to non-resident property owners. So I hope that makes the distinction for you.
Yeah, I'm just asking the question, I guess, I guess I don't know how to pose this, but basically, the governor does not have a restriction on people renting homes, and the only restriction is no more than so many people. Because their county's restriction is it more restrictive than that, and it sounds like to me it is, because it's not allowing any visitors.
That's correct. Yeah, and until they lift the gate for visitors, Dare County would remain more strict, even if the governor changes that order. And right now, it looks like that may happen for a little bit longer.
Okay, does there have a basis for being more restrictive than the governor?
The Dare County Control Group is using their basis as science, saying that the phase 1 and phase 2 and the phases that the governor has set up need at least time. So now that we're letting the NRPOs in, the next phase would need 2 weeks under the guidance that the Dare County Control Group is working under in order to make sure that the newcomers, the NRPOs that are coming in, don't add to the COVID problem here. And if that doesn't happen, then that's the way they would think about opening it to visitors. So that's kind of the best answer I can give you.
Okay. With your any budget, will it still be restricted as far as the numbers? In other words, the governor's order will be, it's currently, I guess, what is it, 10 people?
That's correct.
Okay. So Dare County, okay, I think I've got the answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Anyone else for public comment?
Okay, we'll assume no one else is called in. And before I make a motion to recess, I want to reiterate one last thing. Anybody listening, you are welcome here. This small group of people that have been so obstinate and ugly don't represent us, and I'll leave you with that. I motion to recess till May 11th, 2020 at 9 a.m. here in Kitty Hawk Town Hall for a budget workshop.
Second.
I hear a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now in recess.